Hey, good evening. It is day number 50 of 90. My name's Alan Thomas, and I have Rethink Dieting for Men, part of Transform My Future. And I always tell my story just because I think it's important for people to understand kind of where I come from when it relates to this issue of obesity, especially with men. In 2017, I reached the massive size of 304 pounds on the scale. And, to some of you guys, you're like, oh my God, over 300. To other guys, it's like, oh my God, I was there 150 pounds ago or whatever. But regardless of where you're at, if you're obese or morbidly obese, I think you can probably relate to what I'm going to say. When I hit 304 pounds and stood on the scale, I was 55 years old. It was actually the day after my 31st wedding anniversary. And I realized that I would likely not live another 10 years. And, because I'd been in the life insurance business for many years at that point, and I could never remember meeting a 65-year-old man that was over 100 pounds overweight. Now, they're probably out there, but I had never, to my recollection, met one. And so that meant for me that I was going to be dead in 5 to 10 years, maybe less. And it really did something to me, and it impacted me in a way that, made me start thinking about, okay, what's going to happen to my family? What's going to happen, with all those things that I wanted to do? I think, it's probably hard to understand if you're 25 years old hearing this, but when you're 55, you're going to have things that you want to do. You're going to have those dreams and hopes, and, in your heart, you're still, pretty much a kid at whatever age that you are. Hopefully you've got a little bit more wisdom than when you're a teenager or 25, but at the end of the day, it meant that my hopes and dreams were going to be snuffed out by me. And because, the statistics on obese men are really will take your breath away. And so I committed publicly to reaching 175 pounds by November 22nd, 2017. And I didn't hit it on that date. I hit it 5 days early. And I don't say any of this to impress you. 260 days were standing in between me and an ideal weight. But it wasn't just the ideal weight. I coach men who are morbidly obese, and the ideal weight is nice. I mean, did my joints, ankles and knees, and my, physically, do I feel better? Of course I do. Carrying around 129 less pounds makes a huge difference, but it went much deeper than that. I mean, the thought of, the embarrassment that I'd suffered for so many years that was self-inflicted. I mean, the times that I'd sat down in chairs at clients' house and had to literally pick out a chair that was wide enough for me, for my backside, and not to be embarrassed. And so I'd have to sit at chairs that didn't have arms on them. I'd have to, literally kind of check a chair out before I sat down, because I crushed so many. I mean, I can remember, in several occasions sitting down and chairs giving way on me. And that's embarrassing. I made jokes about it. People make jokes about it. But at the end of the day, it hurts. And so I know these guys that suffer from obesity. It's incredibly embarrassing. It's incredibly debilitating. If you don't think that affects other areas of your life, wake up, because it does. I mean, so many of the men that I talk to have these stories that they tell themselves, and they were just like the stories I told myself. It was like, oh, I'm going to find the right diet. I'm going to get the weight off one day. I'm going to do this. And it went on for years and years and years and years. And when you really put a light in that dark place of, the fact that you're obese, you haven't changed, it really, think about this. Think about what impact you're going to have for your family. I mean, what are your kids thinking when you're not doing anything about it? What were my kids thinking? I'm talking to myself more than anything. What were my kids thinking? What were people that when you walk into a room to have a serious conversation with somebody, do they even take you seriously? Because they're like, you can't even get control of your fork. How are you going to tell me, anything that I'm going to really listen to? And that's what I heard in my head, and that's what I know these men that I talk to every single day. They hear those same voices, and not crazy kind of voices, but that voice of doubt, that voice of lack of self-confidence, that voice of lack of personal momentum, it affects the work, it affects the money, it affects your health, of course the health, but the health is the obvious thing. It's all those things that aren't so obvious that really impact your life and your earning ability and your happiness. I mean, what's that worth? And so, I was thinking tonight, when I was thinking about what I'm going to be talking about on the day number 50 Facebook Live, and I was thinking about, insanity, the definition of it. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to be funny, but I think about this. The definition that a lot of people use for insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I've heard, all of us have heard that, I believe. I mean, I've heard it hundreds of times probably. And so when I was dieting, trying this diet and that diet, and I see something on TV or a friend who loses 20 pounds, say, how did you do it? And you jump on that. I would jump on all these different eating programs. I would spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, what turned into thousands and thousands of dollars to get my weight down. And I wasn't addressing the real problem that was the elephant in the room, not to make a pun, but the elephant in the room was me. And that pun intended on that one. I was the elephant in the room. I was the one that was not being addressed. The way I was thinking about getting the weight off, the importance of it, all these different things. And you guys can tell I'm not scripted at all. So, forgive me. I should be better at this. But I just speak from my heart because when I run into men that just don't get it, and I see that a lot. I mean, some men do, and they're ready. But I talk to guys every single day, and I just ask them questions. I just ask them the questions that were running through my mind when I was morbidly obese, and when I was absolutely hopeless, and when I woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was so upset with myself because I'd finished another day where I had not stuck to a diet, I hadn't stuck to an eating plan, I hadn't done exercise, I hadn't, all these things. And it was leading to me getting fatter and fatter and fatter. Even the bed I was laying in was lopsided because of my weight. I mean, it was just an indication, a physical indication of what it was doing to my life. And what it was doing to my family's life. I mean, my kids, and I've told this before, my kids would write me notes. My daughter, who was, when she was 15 when I lost weight, but before then even, she was writing me notes, with encouragement to lose weight. So, I saw that, oh, that's cute, but I want you to think about, what was she laying in bed thinking about? My dad's going to be dead because he's not doing anything about it. One of my sons who, said to my wife, I guess Dad doesn't love us enough to get healthy. Now, he didn't tell me that personally, but my wife told me that later, as I was losing weight, and I'm like, what have I done to my family? What have I done to my life? Because I couldn't put down the fork. And I meet men that, they think they can exercise the weight off. And they'll go into these crazy exercise modes, and I'm like, you'll never outrun the fork. You'll never outrun the spoon. You've got to rethink this whole process. And I say this to you as just a plea to you, if you're struggling. You might not have another day. I mean, I want you to think about the biggest fear of all that you have. And if, I talk to men all the time that don't even think of this. They don't even think about the fact that they may not wake up tomorrow because they're obese, that, they're like, well, I could die. And they're 100 or 200. I talk to men that are, 300 pounds overweight. And they haven't even considered that they're going to die young. They haven't even considered that. Now, I don't have any prediction on this. I'm not God. I don't have a crystal ball or any of that stuff. I'm just a guy who was morbidly obese, who failed miserably, but woke up. And so I would say this to you: if you're struggling with obesity, stop doing the insane. Stop thinking that you're going to find the magic diet that's going to make it so easy, where you never have to, where you're not in any pain around, or there's no effort. Pain's the wrong word. Where you're not have to do any effort to get your weight down. Where you're going to be able to eat all the cake and ice cream and French fries and everything you want, and you're going to lose weight. Brother, it does not exist. Wake up. I don't have a magic pill either, but we get results. And when I see a man that was held back by his weight. You know, my big question that really triggered a lot of this was, what was holding me back? I was asked that by a coach, and I said, my weight. And when I realized that it was my weight holding me back, everything changed. And so I think when you're looking at this, if you feel like your weight is holding you back, start asking those hard questions. Start asking the questions, and then understand this. You can be encouraged. You can, because I was the worst of the worst, guys. I was hiding eating food. I was, my wife, I would go out to dinner. I've told this many times. We go to, I remember a particular Japanese steakhouse we used to eat in Columbia, South Carolina. We go out and eat and have this massive meal, and then I'd be getting a Big Mac and fries on the way home. Are you kidding? I wasn't 300 pounds there, but I was on my way. And, and I had exercise, no self-control. So, understand this. You can be encouraged. Be encouraged. I was on the phone today with one of the men that, he's lost about 70 pounds. He's changed his life. Everything about his business is changing. His family is, reacting to him differently. Just on and on and on. And get to see men that get into action, and they do what's necessary, but it isn't the diet that really changed them. That's not it. They had to rethink this process. They had to rethink it, and that's what we work on. And I would just say to you, my heart is for these men. It's for their families. It's for their longevity. And I can't get to all of them. I can't. I don't know everybody. And, a lot of men the pain's not that bad yet. And, I think of the story that I originally read. My friend Dan Miller, who wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love, in one of his books, I can't remember which one of his books, I've read them all, but he talks about the dog on the nail. And the dog on the nail, and y'all probably heard this, but I had not heard it until, or ever read it before until what Dan wrote. But, there was this farmer, and he was sitting on his porch with his dog, and an insurance salesman walks up on the porch, and the insurance salesman's meeting the farmer, and they're talking about, the life insurance, and then the insurance salesman hears this whining noise, and it's a soft whine, and he looks down and he says, "Is that your dog whining?" And he said, "Yeah, that's my dog whining." And he says, "What's wrong with him? It sounds like he's sick." And the farmer says, No, he's not sick. He's just laying on a nail." He said, "You mean like the sharp pointy end of the nail that's coming up through the floor?" He said, Yeah, he's laying on one." He said, "Why doesn't he get up and move?" He said, "I reckon it don't hurt him bad enough yet." And so if you're the dog on the nail, it doesn't hurt you bad enough, wake up, because it may be too late. But if you're ready to get up and make a change, if you're ready to have an honest conversation, go to transformmyfuture.com/apply and book a free breakthrough session with me. We'll talk about what, a strategy that could serve you and help you reach your ideal weight. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a physical fitness expert. I'm just a guy that figured out the way through the wilderness of obesity and how to rethink dieting. And so be encouraged. If I can do it, anybody can. Other men are doing this, and you guys will see you tomorrow night. You don't be insane. Don't do the same thing over and over and again and expect a different result. So have a great night.